Machine.
Hello there, my name is Claire Lim, and welcome to Hot Pod Time Machine, the podcast where, along with a special guest, we explore a decision from their past that changed the trajectory of their future for the better. Now, this is the very first episode, and I'm very excited to welcome our very first guest. It's the wonderful Doug Cockle. Hello, Doug. How are you doing?
I'm well, thank you. Thank you for having me on, Claire.
No problem. I'm excited now. When I sent you the format of this podcast, what were your first thoughts?
My first thoughts were, oh my God, what am I going to choose? Because, in the life of a person, there's so many choices made, so many forks in the road. Had they gone down this one, something wonderfully, horribly, terribly different might have happened.
Absolutely. Do you still, do you think like that more as you go older? Because as I've gotten older, I think more carefully about the choices that I make as opposed to when I was younger, if you know what I mean.
Yeah, I think that's true. That's true for me as well. And I think also as you get older, whether this is true or not, or just a perception, the number of choices you have to make come fewer as well. Because when you're young, when you're 18, I'm just picking a number, an age out of the air there. When you're 18, kind of the world's your oyster. There's so many paths to potentially take.
Absolutely.
And as you get older, the paths begin to narrow a bit, and you have fewer but possibly more important path choices to make.
Were you quite, when you were younger, would you say a reckless or gung-ho sort of person, or were you quite a careful person when you were younger? We're leading up to the talking about the choice that you made. Not quite yet, but, were you quite sort of like, throw caution to the wind kind of thing?
I think I was a bit like that. Certainly when I was a child, I was, and, by child, I mean, anywhere from 2 years old to 12. Yeah, I think I was. Yeah, I never really thought about what other people thought of me. I wasn't very self-conscious. Not many children are really, but it's one of those things we learn to do. We learn to become self-conscious, don't we? And I think I just kind of went with my gut and had fun. Whatever felt like fun was what I wanted to be doing.
Absolutely. Same here. Going with your spirit. I think for me, as opposed to what people told me what to do. And I still do that now, for better or worse. It leads me down some interesting paths, that's for sure. I know that some people listening to this might be aware of your work already. Obviously, you're Geralt, the voice of The Witcher, but you haven't chosen specifically something to do with that, although it has affected your future. Tell me about the choice that we're going to talk about today then in this podcast. What is the decision you made in your past that you think was something that really affected the now?
Well, the decision I've chosen to focus on is the decision that I and my wife made to move from the United States to the UK in 1999. Now, it wasn't actually a choice to move here permanently. It was just supposed to be for a year. I was finishing up graduate school, and we had no strong pull to anywhere. And we both just kind of went, you know what? Let's go to England for a year. Her parents are English, and they retired over here. And gosh, there's a long story to tell there. But about all the details of everything. We could do this partly because Marianne is a dual citizen. And she was born to English parents, but she was born in the U.S. So she had the whole two passports. So I was able to come over to England and work legally. So we had the opportunity with the option was open to us, and we decided that would be an interesting option for a year. Do you want me to just carry on,
No,
or?
I was gonna interject actually and
Yeah, interject.
go back a little bit,
Mm,
and because I've met Marianne, who's
mhm.
wonderful, and you guys have been together for how long now? Like, what's the actual time you've been together?
We met in 1993.
Oh, it's a long time.
Um, yeah, it was. I think it was October. If she was here, she'd be slapping me on the shoulder or something. Going, why don't you ever remember when we met? But
This,
it's something like that. I think it was September or October of '93.
and tell me the story of how you and Marianne met, and who made the first move? Were you bowled over? Was she like, oh, who's this? How did you meet?
Oh, well, we met. Oh, it's very Notting
Oh, okay.
Hill-ish. The film Notting Hill with
Yes.
uh, Hugh Grant and I can see her face. You know who I'm talking about.
Julia
Julia Roberts.
Roberts.
Thank
That's it.
you. Yes.
I was
Notting
gonna
Hill.
say
Yeah.
Juliette
So
Lewis.
I.
Juliette Lewis is completely different person. Julia Roberts. Yes. Sorry. Go
Yeah.
on.
um, I had finished university in the States, and I moved to Seattle, where my parents were, and I got a job in this little antique shop. Well, it wasn't really an antique shop; it was like a knickknack shop, and they sold these cool Art Deco lamps. It was called Muggs Antiques, and I was working there, and part of what we sold, it was just me in the shop. The guy who owned the shop ran another shop downstairs, and so I was just there every 6 days a week, selling stuff. And one of the things we sold was secondhand um, novels and paperbacks. And she came in one day, and I was sitting there. I was often quite bored because people often came in, browsed, but didn't really ask any questions. So there wasn't a lot of interaction. But she came in, she bought a couple of paperbacks, and well, she was going to buy a couple of paperbacks, but she had this lovely English accent, and we just got to talking. And she was cute and nice, and she'd only gotten to Seattle from the UK the day before, and she was explaining. She said, "I don't have a TV, I don't even have a radio, but I love to read." So I said, "Oh well, just read those and bring them back when you're done. Use me like a library." So
That
it was
wasn't
a
a eu-
great line. Isn't that great?
and that wasn't a euphemism. You were just being a very nice
Yeah.
boy.
I was just, yeah. I mean, I think subconsciously I was like, well, yeah, I'd like to, have more conversation with you. So,
Oh.
come on back. But it wasn't like there was some grand plan there or anything like that. It literally was just a genuine offer.
Oh.
And I mean, we're talking about books that were being sold for 50 cents. If they were in really good condition, maybe $1.50. We're not talking big money here. So she did come back, and uh, I can't remember if it was that visit or another one, but eventually I asked her out. But it was a very friendly ask out. It was meant to be just we were just going to, I was going to show her around the city a little bit, I said,
Yeah.
we can go have a coffee. I'll drive you around the city a little bit, show you some of the sights and stuff like that. And she took me up on that. And I mean, there's more to tell there, but that's basically how it started.
That's so lovely. And did you feel when you met her, yeah, this person's quite special, we're about to go on a journey? Or was it just like oh, this is a nice new friend?
Kind of a bit of both. But the weird thing on that first date, we did go and have a coffee, and I didn't even realize it. I took her to a lesbian cafe bar
Right.
place at I think it was called the Rosebud Cafe actually, and I only kind of noticed when she started being checked out by some of the other patrons, and I was like, oh, I've misread this place entirely. Not that it was a problem or anything. We had lovely coffee, and then we went for a drive, and I took her. I don't know why I did this, but I took her to this place called Gasworks Park, and this is after dark. And anybody who knows Gasworks Park, it's very dark, and like I said, I didn't think of it at the time, but quite scary at night actually, because it's a bit remote. but it has a lovely, beautiful view of downtown Seattle
Oh,
over Lake Union. So you get the city reflected in the lake water. And I just thought, oh, I'm going to go show her this because it's really cool. So we got out of the car, and immediately I thought, well, this probably isn't a good idea. She doesn't even know me, and I'm taking her into this pitch black park at like 9 o'clock at night or whatever it was. And so as we were walking across the grass towards the dock where you could look out over the lake, I don't remember who initiated it, but I think she took my arm, and I think I offered my arm,
yes.
and she took it just for balance because it was hard to see what was in front of us and stuff like that. And then one of us, and I don't remember who it was, let that slip down into a handhold,
Oh.
and both of us described that moment like there was a zing, like an energy, and we both just, I mean, we didn't talk about it for a long time, but we both remembered there being this moment when we first held hands. We both kind of just had this moment of, ooh,
I love that.
that was interesting. Yeah.
I love
And then
that.
we went and looked at the city, and we had a lovely conversation. And then I took her home, and yeah. And then I could carry on. There's lots of other interesting things. The soapy mushroom story.
Oh gosh, this is gonna have to be a two-parter at some point. We're gonna have to get you back for the for the soapy mushroom story, because I love that. I ask more about Marianne and how you met, because that adventure coming over to the UK together and then having kids and the life together. It's so interesting to understand who your partner in crime is along the way for that as well. And so when you actually came to make that decision together, and you were like, okay, let's go over to the UK, let's do this. How long had you been seeing Marianne at that point? Had it been quite a while?
We were actually married at that point. Or no, we were getting married. We were engaged. We decided that we were going to move to the UK for a year. Sometime in 1998, early 1998.
Okay.
We got married in August of 1998. And we got married here in England at her parents, where her parents live. Yeah, so we'd made the decision before then because our gift list was all essentials, plates and silverware,
Petal.
and
Yeah.
stuff that we were going to need when we moved over here. So
Oh, I love that. It's a big year. So you moved, you got married. So
yeah.
when you made that decision together and you were thinking to come over for a year, of course, it was a lot longer than a year, because you didn't,
Yeah.
I don't think you went back, did you? Did you just stay here and that was it? Why? What was
Yeah.
it about the UK then when you moved over that you thought this is our home? Like, was it just an internal feeling?
You mean what prompted the move, or what prompted the staying?
What prompted the staying?
Well, it didn't. There were moments of this is our home now. For many years, we kept kind of wavering. Will we go back to the States or not? Is that a possibility? And I suppose, if I'm truthful, it still is a possibility. But there would have to be something pulling us really strongly to make us make that move now. Because, as you said, we have children. They're grown up now, but we wouldn't want to be too far from them if we could help it. So, and they're probably both going to stay here in the UK, though who knows. But yeah, there was. It kind of just evolved. We got here. I immediately found work. I found that it was a stupid decision to make to come over here. To be honest, it was kind of a jolly, like we were talking about when you're kids and you just do stuff feels like fun. Well, that's great and all, but sometimes you may not realize it, but you might be leaping into the lion's mouth.
Yes.
There's a great quote. What was it? I'm gonna forget what it is. Something like, "Courage is knowing that it might hurt and doing it anyways. Stupidity is the same, and that's why life is hard."
Yeah, I think I've heard something similar, or it sounds familiar to me, that quote. And
Yeah.
this is the thing about like moving. When you told me you were going to talk about this, I've only made one big move in my life, and it's not so big in the grand scheme of things, but perhaps 20 years ago it was, moving from Glasgow to London.
Hmm.
And I was very young, I was 18. And I'd never really lived away from home. I'd lived in Germany for 6 months previous, but that was it. And
That was meant to be temporary, wasn't it?
yeah, that was meant to be temporary. And the London move was kind of like, well, whatever goes, goes. You know, that was more like, is this a career thing? Will I study? I don't know. And it was a leap of faith. So, you know, I was going with like nothing, I guess. I'm trying to move to America, and it's way more planned. It's more like, right, this is what work I'm going to get. Obviously, I need a visa, so it's very different. So it's strange how our brains sort of think. But I'm very scared and excited about the possibility of my life changing. Did you realize, or did you even think for a second, as soon as you hit the UK soil, like this is going to change everything? Like, or was there even a thought?
You know, I think at the time I was just excited about doing something new and interesting and something I'd never done before. I'd been to England before several times, so I knew what I was coming to. But it was a stupid thing to do at the time because all of my acting related contacts were in the US. I knew nobody in the UK except a few of Marianne's friends and her parents and her brother. I knew nobody in the industry over here. And so, in terms of a career move, I had just finished a Master of Fine Arts degree in acting. And having just done that, you'd think I would go to New York or Chicago or LA or you know, some other large metropolitan area in the US and capitalize on my contacts and the networking I'd been doing already in the US and everything else. But I didn't. I just left it all behind and came over here and knew nobody. So in terms of a career choice, it was really dumb. Or was it?
Or was it? Because
Yes.
we all know now where you've ended up. And do you?
Yeah.
I mean, do you think? I mean, you know, you've had a really great career. You know, you've got your kids, you've got your family. But let's backtrack a bit and just think back. Like, if you had not made that move with Marianne, do you think you still would have been doing the acting in the way that you've been doing it? How do you think your life would have changed or been the same, do you think?
It's really hard to say. I think what I've come to realize is that what we did, the choice to move to the UK at that time, actually did something that I probably couldn't have done in the US, or at least it would have been much, much harder. Because in the US, at the time I was 29 years old. In the US, I was just another 29-year-old white guy coming out of grad school, having studied acting. So there were thousands of and there still were. But I came over here, and what ended up happening was I was brought into auditions because I was a genuine American.
Right.
And I didn't even think about that being a thing. But once it started happening, I went, oh, actually, because I thought I was going to come over here and get no work, no acting work at all. Yeah. That's what I was expecting. Not that I wasn't going to try, expecting to be, you know, not even asked to come into the room. Instead, I found all these doors opening for me. And I was like, wow, this is great, you know? So I think, I don't know what I'm trying to say. We made a choice that in the end turned out to work out very well. There's no way to know if, you know, had I gone to LA or New York at that time instead, if a similar but different thing might have happened. I just, it's so hard to tell, but I do know that I kind of absent-mindedly gave myself a leg up
Yeah,
by
actually,
coming over to the UK.
yeah, you actually made a really good choice because it's hard enough to stand out in this industry as any sort of entertainer. You know, like
Yeah.
you really, so yeah, you really, really did. I mean, I often think about that, about the choices of the people that we choose to have in our lives, the choices that we make in terms of career or moving. Often people have said to me in this last year, oh, in America, you'll be so different though. You'll be the sort of weird Scottish girl. Whereas here,
Oh, they love you.
I'm just
They
another.
will love you.
Oh, look, I hope you. Hi, Jobs. If you're listening to this podcast, listen to this voice. But like here, it's you're just another British person, you know. So
Yeah.
it's not as it's harder to stand out, I guess. But I often think about choices made. My personality is still my personality, you know. So I
Yeah.
think I would still always choose certain things, or still always go down this path, like being a presenter, if you know what I mean, like really trying to
Yeah.
forge a path there. But is there? I'm wondering about the move. Is there anything about this that life choice and change, and then the trajectory onwards, that changed your personality at all, or strengthened it even?
Ooh. Yeah, probably. I know that when I first came over with Marianne to visit, to see her parents, and just before I started, I say we started grad school.
Mm.
She wasn't going to school, but she was, there backing me up the whole 3 years. Um, we came over to England, and I remember at the time finding that my sense of humor seemed to fit in better over here.
Right.
Um, not that my sense of humor didn't work in the States, not that at all. I just found that it kind of fit better over here. I have a slightly cynical, definitely sarcastic sense of humor, and it fits well with the kind of I don't know how to describe it.
It's a
It,
bit
it is
drier
sarcastic
over
over
here. Where
dry,
yeah,
dry. Thank you. That's it. Yeah,
yeah,
the dry sense of humor over here in the UK.
yeah. It's weird
So I
because
found that was a kind of an interesting match.
it's like I do find that like about because you know whenever we've spoken, I think you kind of get it. Like I mean, you of course you get it. You've been here for so long, but um, there are certain things about America I've always thought, although we speak the same language, there are certain cultural differences that seem very kind of like that sort of pull us apart. And there are certain cultural touch points like SNL. I don't get SNL at all. I know that some people love it, but it's so American that kind of humor.
Yeah.
It seems very. Don't kill me, American listeners. Whoever's my American friends are like, what? It seems so obvious to me. I prefer.
It is. It is. I think that's. I grew up on SNL, and I always found it obvious.
Yeah.
And loads of my friends thought it was, the best thing since sliced bread. And I was like, okay, great. And I watch it, and I'd enjoy bits of it, and I think some of it was really funny. And
Sure.
a lot of it, I just thought, this is just inane.
Yeah.
This doesn't make. I can't laugh at this because it's just too stupid.
Yes.
But that is why I fit better over here. I came over here and I saw, I can't remember all the guys' names, but I remember Josie Lawrence in Whose Line Is It Anyway?
Yes.
And that I found funny,
Mm-hmm.
and I was like, what is this stuff? This is amazing. This is true comedy,
Yeah.
But it's just a different approach. It's comedy that comes from different place.
How is the UK over, the decades that you've been here? How has the UK changed you, or has it changed you as a person in terms of the way you think, personality, anything that stands out or comes to mind?
I think in general, living in the UK has um, empowered certain aspects of my personality that perhaps I might have stifled in the US.
Ah, okay.
I don't know if I can, excuse me, I don't know if I can actively point to a specific thing, but I know that just going back to the humor thing, the sense of humor thing, I think I felt more empowered to say that joke that I thought was funny, knowing that it has a stronger likelihood of landing here than it would have back home. Now, there's not like a conscious process I go through in terms of that. It's a thing. If I look at it, I think that does happen. When I go back to the States, I find quite often talking to friends and family and stuff, I find their sense of humor abrasive. And that's not a criticism. It's just because of who I am and how much time I've spent in this culture with the approaches to conversation and humor and interaction that tend to happen here. I go there and it's like it just doesn't fit very well. I don't feel comfortable.
I know what you mean.
Or as comfortable as I used to, certainly, because when I lived there, I dealt with it. I sound like I'm some kind of, I have some kind of illness or something I had to deal with. It's not. It's how you adapt. How you adapt to your environment. So in the States, I always find I have to adapt to the environment. I have to pull out different personality traits, suppress some others a little bit, because I know that they're going to cause confusion, or they're going to. Sometimes it's as simple as it will bring on very mild, not criticism, but people will tease me. It's a really good example of this is like, over here it's vitamins.
Yeah,
We're going to
vitamins
take our vitamins.
in America. Yes.
It's vitamins. Yeah. So if I were to say during the course of a conversation, I just say, "Oh yeah, today I went and bought some vitamins at the supermarket." Inevitably, someone will go, "Vitamins? Vitamins? Really? You mean vitamins?"
That's so funny because if I say it, they go, "That's so cute."
Yeah.
So, you know what? You just have to grow your hair, Doug. Get some lipstick on and say it in a Scottish accent, and you'll be called cute. It's absolutely fine.
Do you know, I've been known on occasion when I'm visiting the States, when I'm on my own and I'm feeling plucky, to put on a bit of a British accent just for fun. Because people respond to you totally differently. If I rock up with my American accent, I'm just another American. If I rock up and I'm going to do this now, and I'm just going to sound terrible because I have to work on it and stuff like that. I have to be in the zone. But is it like a cafe latte, please? And can you make sure that the cream is properly whipped on top?
Oh, no problem, sir. That's no problem.
Yeah, and then now you have to go, where are you from?
Oh my God, your accent's so cute. Where are you from?
Yeah. Now, this is a huge generalization. So all you Americans watching this and listening to this, I love you so much. It's not a criticism. I love my America and my American people. But it is, when, you asked Claire, has it changed you? What, and yes, it has. It's made me recognize aspects of myself that I wouldn't have even thought about or questioned had I stayed in the States, because it would have just been the norm.
Absolutely.
And I stepped out of the norm, and that's when you start to notice subtleties, or even not subtleties, big things, where you go, wow, actually, when I was that guy, I was a jerk, or I don't recognize myself in that situation now that I've had this experience.
Well, that's the thing, though, Doug. Like, I think it's a really... No, I'm not saying that everybody has to move countries or move towns, because everybody's life is different, and I respect everyone's choices. Some people stay in the same town and have a family, and they never leave. That's also fine. for me personally, maybe you'll agree with me, I feel like in the course of a human life, it is good to push out, branch out, and see something different. When I lived in Germany for 6 months, and that was not a long time, especially when you're a young person, speaking a different language as well, which is, it completely rewires your brain. I think when you speak the language and the grammar is different, and they phrase things in a completely different way. The humor is completely different. You come back and it shines a light on the way that you are, and the way that we are as a culture. You start to think 360 degrees as well, and that's what I think is very interesting about living in a different place. Doesn't mean you hate the place you're from, or it might make you want to go back more, or stay away. It's really your choice, but it does shine that light, and it's like the fog clears, and you go, oh yeah, that's what we're like then. Cool.
Yeah. Why do we do it that way?
Yeah,
I don't get it now.
I know. I don't,
because these guys are doing it this way, and actually works really well.
Exactly, and I think it's healthy. I really do. I mean, I think it's healthy to even go on holiday and just experience another culture just for a little bit. But there are some people who are scared of that, and that's fine for whatever reason. But I just want to. I don't know about you, but I want to get to the end of my life when I'm a wee old lady in my bed, and have some stories to tell, and be able to look back and think about the amazing, exotic, strange people that I met from all over the world.
Yeah.
And whether I'm alone or not, at least I've got my stories, if you know what I mean. So
yeah, absolutely.
I think
And it is fascinating. I mean, I think that from a young age, I learned how to step outside of my comfort zone, because my father was a Marine Corps officer.
right.
He's retired now, but he's a career Marine Corps officer. And we moved all the time. And these numbers change all the time as well. But this is roughly accurate. By the time I was 20 years old, I think we had lived in something like 14 different houses, and I'd gone to like nearly as many different schools.
Wow.
So, and any military brat out there listening to this will recognize that. And what you learn very quickly, I don't know if you actively, I think it's something that you do. You learn how to make friends. You learn how to walk into a situation as the new kid constantly. And you learn how to step into a new group and find a way to fit in. And some of that, and I've met a lot of actors who are military brats. A lot of that effort to fit in is recognizing and taking on behaviors and ways of interacting that this group have. And so you become a bit of a chameleon. You kind of, you learn how to shift and move between different groups a bit. I never had a group growing up. I never, when I finally got to high school and, people were, you were a sports person, you were a jock, or you were a dramarama, they called them at my high school.
Sure.
Or you were, the artsy, all those cliques that form. And there's nothing wrong with the cliques. I noticed that I kind of jumped from one to another. I was never part of one in particular. I was on the fringes of all of them.
Oh, okay.
And so I think that was partly my military child upbringing.
It's not a bad position to be in,
No.
I was the loner. So I think we talked about this. It was a Comic-Con recently, and we were in a green room standing in a corner going, like, almost observing all the cliques that form, because people form cliques. They really do.
Yeah.
What I have observed from Comic-Cons, I don't know about you, is that generally Americans, if they're in the UK, tend to congregate together. You don't do that because you are from the UK. And so you sort of are like me. I think you're a floater, for lack of a better word.
Are you calling us terrible? You're calling us floaters. We're floaters. Oh my God.
Doug, it's time for us to admit that we are floaters, and it's okay, Doug. It's okay.
Do
We're
you know what a floater
floaters.
is, though, in bathroom
Oh yes, I
parlance?
definitely know.
You do. Okay, good. I'm glad.
It was deliberate, Doug. It was,
Oh,
it's part of that sort of silly, dry humor we've got in the UK.
oh,
It's got a lot to
is it
learn.
really?
Or toilet humor, which is just my thing. But
No,
yes,
it's my thing too.
it's we were observing. I remember us standing in the corner going, look, those people over there are grouped together. And like during that weekend, I just sort of dotted around, or I was on
Yeah.
my own, and I observed you did that. You would like, chat to this person, that person. But that's not a bad, I don't think that's a bad position to be in, because then you're everyone's sort of acquaintance friend. And that's
Yeah.
okay. Survival of the fittest. So
Yeah, I think the drawback to being a floater is that quite often you find yourself just enough on the outside that you don't necessarily feel included in some of the
yeah.
more intimate interactions within that group.
Yeah.
And by intimacy, I don't mean romance or anything like that. I mean, it might be, but I mean, I just remember that some of the cliques, I would look in on them and I'd go, God, they're all such good friends and they know each other so well and they're always around each other's houses. And I'd be like, why don't I get invited over to these little soirees,
same.
And this because I'm a frickin' floater.
Because we stink. We're floaters and we stink. And that's it. We're nothing but bathroom dirt, Doug.
That's right.
That's why. And it's okay. Because you know what? Floaters float together. So we find each other in the end. So it's absolutely fine. But you know what? Being a floater, for lack of a better word, I think that stands you in good stead when you are moving and when you are going to a new place. I'm not scared of making new friends in LA. Like you kind of came to the UK with Marianne. And I don't know if you had any anxiety at that time. There might have been a little bit, but like, oh no, what am I going to do? This is going to be dreadful. I have to start all over again because you were a military brat, as you said, and you're used to floating around. Like all of that actually makes you kind of more pliable, I guess.
Yeah, and I think I was excited. I don't remember feeling any anxiety about moving to the UK. I think partly because I knew it was only for a year, or at least I thought, well, if it doesn't work out over here, the plan is to go back to the States in a year anyway.
Sure.
So let's just enjoy the ride. But I also think that I know it's not just me. I don't think it's everybody though. I think there's a certain freedom in making a choice that's a big choice and then going, well, that's it. I just got to get on with it now.
Yes, there really is. There's no turning back at one point. You just have to stick or twist, and there's actually, it's quite exhilarating, I think, that feeling. And I don't know, like, I think as you get older, you have less of those exhilarating feelings, or I do, and because you're paying bills, you're trying to get on, or for me, I'm trying to, you'll probably relate to this as well, get the next job, you're hustling for the next thing and stuff. And that's not as exhilarating as going, right, I'm going to pack my bags, I'm going to move and start a new life, and I kind of, I'm looking forward to that feeling again. I kind of.
Are you, sorry, you can, it's your podcast. You answer this if you want to or not. Yeah. One of the things I found interesting about moving to the UK was we sold everything. I mean, there were some things that we shipped over. I wanted to keep all my theater books, my plays, and my books about acting and things like that. I shipped over. I brought over my guitar. I shipped over a few other, things that were just important to me to keep. But we sold everything. We sold clothes. We sold our bed. We sold our, all of our furniture. We sold everything. And so we came over here with a few suitcases and a few things that we'd shipped, and we started all over again. And that process is exhilarating and freeing in and of itself, because it's like you're just going, all this stuff, it's just stuff.
Yes.
I don't need this stuff. I have this stuff because it came into my life because at one point I needed a bed. but I can let it go too.
Yes.
So, I mention this because you're probably starting to think about that process
I'm
yourself.
doing it now. I'm doing it right now.
Yeah. So, are you going around your flat now and kind of going, you know what? That's going to the charity shop.
Yeah. Yes, it's a very strange feeling because it's 20. There's some things I can't get rid of because they belong to both me and my ex. But there's 20 years of things, in this apartment. I've been here in my whole adult life is in this apartment from the age of 18 to like 39 now. And it's a really strange thing. I used to consider myself a hoarder. I would hold on to ticket stubs and things that meant, something. And I have still kept them. I've just filed them now and I've put them in a box to keep here somewhere. I'll come back at some point in the future. I'm sure I won't stay in America forever unless I end up doing a Doug and Marianne.
I was going to say famous last words.
or I meet
See you in 20 years.
Or I meet a nice big handsome American man and then that's it. But I'm just, it's strange. I've thrown a lot of things out that I thought I wanted to keep, really strange things. I'll give you an example, Doug. This is a really weird one. Okay, so there's this big Moo shirt that I had from when I was 14 years old. It's a Tweety Pie shirt. And I used to wear it when I was a kid, when I was 14. It was like pajamas. It went right down to like my knees. Huge. And I loved it so much. And I kept it and held on to it. And I didn't wear it past the age of 18. But I kept it, I've held on to it, held on to it. And I found it again last week. And I looked at it and there's holes in it. There's like holes in the armpits, holes all over. And I looked at it and I held it for ages and I was like, I don't know why. Like, it's so hard to... But you know what? I actually stood up in my bedroom and went, no, Claire, throw it in the bin. Threw it in the bin and I tied up the bag and went, no, don't look at the bag. Just take the bag down. I actually had to physically say it out loud. I threw it in the trash and I was like, throw it in the trash, don't look back. Walk upstairs, don't look back. I was like, I have to let go of it. Because sometimes it's about energies. And that's the energy of the past. And it's so dumb that I held on to that because it just meant a lot to me. But this is now the energy of the future. It's a strange thing to let go. I don't know if you're a hoarder or you find it hard to...
I am. I'm not a hoarder in the clinical sense of it. I don't have a problem.
Yeah, I've got a problem.
But I do have trouble letting go of things. If the thing is useful, and I've found it useful in the past, then my brain goes, well, it's been useful in the past. It might be useful in the future.
Yes.
So I hate giving up things that I think I might need again in the future. Even if that might be 10 years down the line. And then by then it's going to be something different that I'll need to buy new.
Exactly.
Anyways, so that, but also if it's something that has some kind of sentimental value,
Yes.
like you were talking about the ticket stub, that kind of thing. If it was a ticket stub for I think I've got one kicking around here somewhere for the Cure concert it was my very first rock concert that I went to when I was like 16 or 17 or something like that. And I went with a bunch of good friends and a girl who was my girlfriend at the time. I think she was anyways. I can't remember. And it's just a really good memory, But do I really need that thing in my life to remember that?
I know. It's so... I don't know why we hold on to... the sentimental thing is really... That's something that really keeps me hanging on to things. If somebody gives me something and I like them a lot, I'll hang on to it, ticket stubs, things from friends, little trinkets that mean things to me. And it's trinkets I've had to let go of, little small things I've had to trash because I can't take all of those things with me and I can't store them everywhere or anywhere. So that's the part of the move that's messing my brain up right now because I've thrown out about 15 trash bags in the last 7 days of huge things. I've taken like 5 giant big bags to the charity shop and the next thing is clothes. So it's difficult, but it's about new energy, just letting go of the past, new energy. But I wanted to ask you, like Doug, like, you know, we're talking about that movie. I mean, we've gone off on a tangent, which is exactly what I wanted. I wanted to go off on a big tangent. So use that's what this podcast is about, is that one moment, and then we can spiral off and, like, you know, kind of get to know one another a bit more. But now that we've had the chance to look back a little bit at all sorts of things, actually, relationships, move, and everything else, what takeaways do you have from that specific time that you think have really helped you in the present?
From the time when we moved.
Yes, from that sort of specific era when you moved, that year.
Things that help me in the present.
Yes.
Well, I think I've kind of already covered one of them, really. And that's that I can't be afraid. It's on the tip of my tongue, and I'm going to say it, and I don't think it's actually true.
That's
But I'm not
okay.
sure. I can't be afraid of change. And this is the thing. I hate change. I hate it.
Oh, you do? Okay.
I do. This is the problem.
The man that changed his whole life way back then. So explain
I know.
that. Explain the idea of hating change, but also being okay with it at the same time.
Yeah. I think it's Marianne says about me, and she's absolutely correct. She says, Doug is great in a catastrophe and can't deal with spilt milk.
Oh, yeah, I get it. Okay. I get what she's saying. Okay.
Yeah. So if the change is big enough, I'm good with it. Okay, because I just go, well, I just got to get on with it now.
Yes.
Right? If it's a small change, like we are constantly trying to refurbish our house. I hate it.
Nobody likes refurbishing their house. Like, it's the worst.
I know, but you know, some people get off on it. You know, it's really exciting for them. They like that change. Marianne does.
Right.
She really enjoys the process of the change.
Oh.
Not the getting contractors in or things like that. You know, it's the process of seeing the change happen, and then eventually getting to an end point where you go, we did that, and I hate it. I just don't enjoy the process. I like the end result.
Of course.
But I don't like the process. I don't know if that's a good example, but I think if I were to take something away from younger me making that big change, I think that's partly what I think I've tried to take on board. You know, now, is that change is change.
Yeah.
I still hate certain kinds of change.
Same.
And I definitely don't like spilt milk, especially when it's on the sofa.
Oh, it gets all dry. It stinks.
It stinks, yeah.
Yeah. So small change stinks. That's the metaphor here. And big change is dealable. We can deal with it. I mean, you know, from talking to you and like hearing about, you know, the big move that you made, and then going, oh, it's just a jolly, and it ended up resulting in work. We didn't talk about the work so much because I feel like we know about the work. The work happened, you know, but also your kids and that feeling of like a cultural change inside you, your brain being rewired without you knowing it, you know, and a life lived. It's kind of nice to hear that you've lived a life, you know, and it's really, because I'm scared, you know, to make a change at 39, but to listen to you, I'm like, no, it can be okay. You know, like it's going to be fine.
Absolutely. Oh God, Claire, just on the issue of change, people watching this podcast may not realize that for 13 years I taught full time at university. I ran an acting course here in the UK, and so I was doing all of the Witcher stuff and many other things during that time as well. So I was kind of juggling a lot of different things. Anyways, the point being that I got to a point, and when was this? This was 2017. I got to a point where I couldn't do it all anymore. And I Marianne and I sat down one day, and she was like, "I'm worried about your health. You're going to die." And I was like, "I'm worried about my health. I am going to die." And we had to make a choice. I had to either leave the teaching job or give up the acting.
Right.
And in the end, the teaching job lost out, and I went back. But I was giving up a well-paid, full-time, practically, tenured, they'd call it in the U.S. I'd have to do something really awful to lose the job. That paid a really good salary. I gave that up to go back to hustling for work.
Wow.
There's another stupid idea.
But it worked
Isn't
in your
it?
favor. So actually, you're quite good with change. It's strange.
I seem to be.
Yeah, you seem to be. As long as there's no milk involved, you're fine. So...
I drink my tea black.
Look, don't serve this man milk. Okay, if you see him on the street, don't wait. If you want to scare Doug Cockle, just wave a carton of milk at him, and he'll go run.
Yeah.
Oh, shit! Oh my God!
No, the reason I tell you that story is because you said, you're afraid of making such a big change at this point in your life, and I'm like, dude, I did that when I was in my mid-40s.
Sure. Okay.
So, and we talked about how as you get older, the range of choices you have available to you narrow somewhat. At this stage in my life, it would be really challenging for me to go back and decide to be a doctor and go to medical school.
Of course.
That would be really hard to do now.
Of course.
But not impossible, just really hard. So it's not a likely option. But I mean, I think the change you're making is amazing. I think,
Well, it remains to be seen.
I imagine for you, it's one of those things where you're kind of telling yourself, well, if I don't do it now, I'm never going to. So
yeah, this is it.
Here we go.
It's like a fork in the road moment,
Yeah.
And I think what I've learned from the last 12 months, and especially is, when this podcast goes out, it will be 40 weeks till my 40th. Exactly. The last episode will go out on the day of my 40th, which I can't say what the job will be, but I hope there's a job that starts on the day of my 40th that I think I might get, which means I won't even be in LA. I'll be somewhere else. So like I'm already I'm planning my party already, Doug.
Do it. But the sad thing about you moving to LA, Claire, is that those watching won't know this, but we met at a convention.
Yes.
You were hosting one of the stages.
Yes.
and doing other things as well. And I was a guest there, and we literally met in the green room. We met on stage, didn't we?
We
and
met
then
on
we just
stage.
carried on.
It was in May. It was the voiceover actor panel in May at Comic-Con last year in 2022.
Yeah, but we've been at a number of conventions together over here now, and now you're going to be in the U.S.
I know, you're going to have to come to the US ones then. But I'm still going to come back for the UK ones. Like I've spoken to the UK people, and I'm like, can you still have me over? And they're like, yeah, possibly. So I'll still come over for those. So I know it's crap. I feel like I've met a lot of really amazing folks here and in America over the last sort of 12 months. It's been a funny year, and now I'm kind of leaving, but I feel like a pull somewhere else. So I've got to do it. But you can come visit me in California. I mean,
yeah.
I know you love
once
LA.
you get yourself all sorted out, you're gonna be living with a friend of yours over there, aren't you?
Yeah. I'm gonna be living with my friend.
Well, I hope a couch invite is there if I ever find myself in LA.
100%. As long as you can deal with a cat and a dog.
I love them both.
Okay, great. Well, you're invited. Doug, it has been absolutely wonderful chatting to you about all sorts. I like the way our conversation went, actually. I thought we were just going to talk about the move, and it ended up just branching off into so many different things. Maybe you can come back for a follow-up, because I want to hear about what's the mushroom story? What was that?
It's a story about soapy mushrooms.
Okay, you got to. Let's have a part 2. Don't tell me about that. I just want to hear about soapy mushrooms next time. So maybe you can come back for like a later one down the line later in the year. That would be lovely.
Okay, that sounds
It'd be
great.
lovely to have you. We could talk about something else. But yeah, where can we find you on the social medias? Do your promo thing. Go for it.
Oh, on the social
The
medias.
social medias, yes.
You can find me on the social medias at on Twitter, where I'm Cockle, just DCOCKLE, and on Instagram, where I am Doug Cockle. On Twitter, I have the blue tick. I have no idea what's happening with blue ticks anymore. Instagram won't give me one. I don't know why. So there's a couple different accounts on Instagram. One of them is mine. You'll know it's mine because there are lots of photos and videos that I've posted and stuff like that. The other accounts don't have that.
Look for the real Doug, and we'll be tagging you.
It is Doug Cockle Official, yeah.
Doug Cockle Official. Doug, thank you very much for speaking with me, and hopefully we'll see you down the line very soon. Thank you very much, everyone, for listening to this very first episode of Hot Pod Time Machine. I hope you enjoyed it. Take care, and we'll catch you later. Bye-bye.
Hot Pod Time Machine.